Let's begin with something most people overlook. High blood pressure is rarely just about salt or age or genetics. More often than we're willing to admit, it is the physiological signature of a life lived in perpetual tension. Your nervous system was engineered for acute threats, a sudden noise in the dark, a real and immediate danger. In that moment, your heart rate rises, your blood vessels constrict, your blood pressure increases. That's adaptive. That keeps you alive. But the modern problem is this: the threat never seems to leave. It's the unpaid bill, the unresolved argument, the constant digital stimulation, the pressure to perform, to compare, to measure up. And here's the psychological twist: your body does not distinguish well between a charging predator and a threatening email. To your nervous system, stress is stress. So it activates. And it stays activated. When that state becomes chronic, elevated blood pressure is not a malfunction. It's a predictable outcome. This is why mastering your blood pressure begins with mastering your internal state. Slow, deliberate breathing is not trivial. It signals safety to the body. A quiet walk without your phone is not laziness, it is recalibration. Deep sleep is not indulgence, it is neurological repair. Each of these behaviors tells your system, you are not under attack. And when the body believes it is safe, it relaxes its grip. There's something profoundly empowering about that realization. It means you are not merely a passive victim of your biology. You have influence over it. The way you interpret events, the pace at which you move through your day, the boundaries you set. These are psychological decisions with cardiovascular consequences. If you are constantly reactive, your arteries will mirror that rigidity. If you cultivate steadiness, your physiology begins to follow. So the question becomes, are you living as if everything is an emergency? Or are you willing to create moments of intentional calm? Because here is the truth: when you learn to calm your nervous system, you are not escaping life. You are taking command of it. And the heart, quite literally, will follow the leader. Now, once you begin regulating your nervous system, something else becomes clear. Calm alone is not enough if the body itself has been neglected for years. Because the heart, like any engine, responds to load. And if you continuously overburden it, through inactivity, poor nutrition, excess weight, dehydration, it will compensate. High blood pressure is often that compensation. We have to be honest about this. The body is remarkably adaptive. If you consume highly processed food day after day, overloaded with sodium and stripped of nutrients, your vascular system stiffens. If you rarely move, your circulation becomes inefficient. If you carry excess weight, especially around the abdomen, your heart must pump harder to push blood through a larger mass of tissue. None of this happens overnight. It is the quiet accumulation of small decisions. And here's the deeper point: your biology reflects your patterns. Movement is not merely about burning calories. When you walk consistently, your blood vessels become more elastic. When you engage in strength training, your muscles improve insulin sensitivity and vascular function. When you hydrate properly, blood volume stabilizes. When you eat foods rich in potassium, magnesium, and fiber, leafy greens, legumes, whole fruits, you provide the raw materials your arteries need to relax rather than constrict. You are either building a body that cooperates with you, or one that resists you. And this is not about punishment or aesthetic perfection. It's about responsibility. Every time you choose to move instead of remain sedentary, you are signaling to your body that it must function at a higher level. Every time you choose whole, nourishing food over convenient excess, you reduce systemic strain. These are not superficial lifestyle tweaks. They are structural upgrades. The uncomfortable truth is that many people want their blood pressure to drop without altering the habits that created the elevation in the first place. But physiology does not negotiate with denial. It responds to input. If you want lower pressure within your arteries, you must lower the burden placed upon them. So ask yourself this: are your daily habits strengthening your heart, or forcing it to work overtime? Because the body will adapt either way, and it will adapt to the standards you set. Now this brings us to something deeper, and perhaps more uncomfortable. You can regulate your nervous system. You can improve your nutrition and start moving your body. But none of it endures without discipline. And discipline is not a popular word in a culture that worships convenience. High blood pressure is not typically the result of one catastrophic decision. It is the cumulative effect of repeated, seemingly insignificant choices. Staying up an hour later than you should. Skipping movement because you're tired. Reaching for what is easy instead of what is nourishing. These are small actions, but repeated daily, they become a biological philosophy, a way of living that your body faithfully records. Medication can lower a number, but discipline transforms the pattern that produced the number. And here's the paradox: discipline is not restriction. It is structured freedom. When you commit to consistent sleep, your hormones stabilize. When you train your body regularly, your cardiovascular system becomes more resilient. When you establish boundaries around food, stress, and digital overload, your nervous system regains rhythm. Structure creates predictability, and predictability reduces internal chaos. Your heart thrives on rhythm. So does your life. What most people misunderstand is that discipline is less about intensity and more about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who does what they said they would do, especially when it's inconvenient. That alignment between intention and action reduces psychological friction. And when psychological friction decreases, physiological strain often follows. You cannot negotiate long-term health with short-term impulses. The real question, then, is not, how do I lower my blood pressure? The real question is, who must I become to sustain lower blood pressure? A calmer person, a stronger person, a more deliberate person, someone who values long-term vitality over momentary comfort. Because the body listens to your habits more closely than it listens to your hopes. And if you are willing to impose order on your daily routines, steady sleep, consistent movement, intentional nourishment, your biology will gradually align with that order. The numbers will follow the structure. So decide who is in charge, your impulses or your principles. Because the heart will obey whichever one you choose.